friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenboss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey, Herbies, welcome in and happy 2025. We made it. It's a new year, and I thank you for being a part of this journey with me. I know a lot of you have been subscribing to this channel for a while now, and I'm looking forward to another year of creating content for you and exploring the magical and mystical world of plant medicine together. So thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please just click the button. It helps other people to find me and for me to spread my work and for you to know the cool and interesting things that are happening in the plant world. Today, we are going to look at 3 must-have herbs for the new year ahead. And these are 3 herbs I've really carefully thought about them and crafted ones that are easy to find and that I think are most accessible, in terms of understanding, and also probably they're going to be the most effective and efficient and I think collectively probably the most beneficial for us on a whole as a species, for the human species in 2025, for us to make advancements. These are going to be the herbs that are going to help us collectively advance with our health, our wellness, our emotional intelligence. So I'm really excited to share these with you. Before we dive into today's content, I know that our Kickstarter has ended. So if you weren't able to donate and support and pledge to support our 2025 drive, there's actually a little trick, is that you can still go to the Kickstarter page and you can still get all of the rewards. So if you still want to enroll in the Roots and Spheres course that I co-teach with my husband, if you want to enroll in my year 1 herbal foundations class or year 2 advanced herbal techniques, then you can still grab those for 1 week. So I think it's until January 7th, you can still get those discounts. So I'll include a link in the description if you want to head over there. I also wanted to mention that I'm going to be teaching this year again at the Midwest Women's Herb Conference in Ullman, Wisconsin, May 23rd to 25th. I had such a wonderful time last year teaching at this event, and we are so blessed this year to have guest speakers, Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, which is just such an incredible book about indigenous plant wisdom, and also Gail Faith Edwards, who is the author of Benedictaria, and she teaches Southern Italian folk herbalism. So if you are Italian or Greek, she teaches amazing folk wisdom from those regions of the world. So they're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Also, Lise Wolf, who is a new herbal friend of mine. She's a Minnesota native herbalist, will be there. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you're going to be there so I can look out for you. Tickets are on sale, and you can get a discount by using the code HERBAL10, and that's all caps, herbal, because it's with an H, even though we Americans like to, for weird reasons, call it herbal. We should call it herbal because it is an H. It is herbal wisdom, herbal medicine. I'm sure all of you in the UK and outside of the US are like, yeah, of course it's herbal, Ashley, but I don't know. Americans say herbal, so I'm American. What do I say? But nonetheless, if you use the discount code herbal and 10, you can get 10% off of your ticket. So that's kind of a cool deal. They give it to us as presenters so that we can pass it along to our students and our followers. So I love that. I also wanted to mention, for those of you who are local Minnesota herbalists, I will be teaching a elixir and cordial making workshop at Tonkadale Greenhouse here in Minnetonka in February on Valentine's Day weekend. So if you want to come out and join me for some medicine making, I've been making herbal cordials, elixirs, and honeys for everyone to sample. So I'll have all my fancy bottles lined up, and you can come and sample my cocoa rose elixir and my vanilla bean elixir. It's going to be really fun. So all of that will be linked on my website, skyhouseherbs.com, and also in the description below. I'm like, it's like winter and it's so dry here in Minnesota. So I'm going to be drinking a lot of water throughout today's video, and not a bad thing because, I think we all probably, they say that most Westerners are chronically dehydrated. I believe it. So hopefully my drinking water reminds you, hey, are you thirsty too? Because I feel like whenever I see someone else drink water, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thirsty too. So, and I want to just say something about New Year's resolutions. Because every time a year I get here, and I used to be so gung ho about like, make a resolution, let me just commit to doing something. And this year I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that to myself. I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing. And if you listen to my video last week, I pulled 3 tarot cards for the new year ahead and looking at themes and things that we can be aware of to help us transition and move through 2025. And one of the cards that I pulled was, what is it that we're bringing with us? Like what comes with us from 2024 into 2025? Because it's not like all of a sudden the year changes and then it's like, oh, it's a whole new world, or I have to change something so big. I feel like that doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. Maybe it works for you. But what I loved is when I pulled the card, it was the tiger lily and it was the card of action. And it was action based on previous actions. And it's action based on what is right in front of you in the moment. And so I feel like for me in 2025, it's not about starting something drastically new or punishing myself through guilt and shame to do something that I should, quote, quote, should be doing. But rather, I've built so many healthy actions in 2024. I'm going to continue those healthy actions in 2025 and just give myself spaciousness and grace to take those choices every moment at it, like one moment at a time, right? In 12 step, they say one day at a time, but like even one moment at a time, like how do I choose the next best thing, the next right thing, right? And I love this idea of carrying through the actions of last year and just continuing to work them. It's like working a piece of art, which I'm painting right now. I'm working on a painting, and it's like just like you start with something, and then you just keep rework. You keep working on top. You build on top of it, right? You like build layers of paint and layers and layers, and then it gets more and more beautiful and more interesting the more layers you build. And that's what I want to do. I want in 2025 to just keep adding layers to my canvas. Like, how much more interesting can I become? Like, what are the things inside of me that are already there I can just build on, right? So anyway, that's not about the 3 herbs for the year ahead, but maybe that was interesting to you. And that's kind of where I've been thinking. And often when I share what I'm thinking, a lot of you are like, hey, I was thinking something similar. So I always like to sometimes just let myself go and talk with y'all. Whatever lands, lands, and whatever you don't need, just let it go. All right. So when I was thinking about the 3 must-have herbs for 2025, here's what I was thinking. I wanted to make sure that I covered herbs that address longevity and overall health. I also wanted to think about, so one of the ways that I work as an herbalist, like when I'm thinking about herbal formulas for a client, is I go to actions. I think about what are the herbal actions that I want to address. And then from the actions, then I start to list through my herbs. And sometimes an herb will pop in, like it just sort of roguely comes in. It usually comes in through the right side of my vision. And I'm like, oh, that herb. And then, usually it makes sense why. Like I have to obviously rationalize why it comes in, and I always can, like there's always a reason. But when I'm like generally, and when I'm teaching my students about how to formulate herbs, it's like, okay, start with what are the actions that you want this formula to have on a person. So here are the actions I think all of us could benefit from in the year ahead. We could benefit from having an herb that is tonic, that is, it's nutritive, it's building, it's nutritious, it has vitamins and minerals in it. So it's giving us deep tonic nourishment. So that's one action I think is important. Another action that would benefit all of us this year is having an herb that's adaptogenic. Adaptogenic herbs are herbs that help to regulate the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is a fancy way of saying your stress response, right? Like it helps us to recover from stress more quickly. It helps us to not get activated and agitated so easily. And then it helps us once we've gotten hit down by a virus or a cold or gotten kicked down by life, life just kicks you down, right? It helps you bounce back a little bit faster and helps you build more resilience with your central nervous system. So adaptogenic is the second action I think is important for us. The third is nervine relaxant, or I could also call these mood tonics. So this third quality or action is that of one that is going to help our nervous systems remain peaceful, or like have a more relaxed, less tense or tight tone to us. And you all can think, I want you to think in your mind of someone who's like super uptight. Like just think about how they carry themselves. There's something you can actually feel the tension sometimes in a person by the way you can like see and feel the tension. So having a nervine relaxant is an herb that's going to help us just look a little more easy, look a little more relaxed, feel more relaxed, which is even more important than how we look. Is do you feel like, everything's fine, we're okay, you're okay, I'm okay, we're okay. So that's another action. Is herbal, is a nervine relaxant or mood tonic. The fourth one is immune modulating. I wanted to stick an herb in there that has an effect on the immune system, because that way we're more resilient to pathogens like viruses, colds, flus, bacteria, things that come into our system or cross through our system, so that we're more resilient and able to respond, and we don't get as sick, or we get less sick, or we don't even get sick at all. So immune modulator. And then the fifth one was something that is going to support our gut health, our gut microbiome, because we know now scientifically that our gut health is linked not only to the health of our digestion and elimination and assimilation, but our gut health is also linked to our mood and our mental health. That there's been tons of studies that have shown links between the gut microbiome and mental health diseases like schizophrenia and bipolar, also ADHD. There's a ton of correlations between the gut microbiome and mental health. And, we know it's no secret that here in the West, mental health, we're in a mental health crisis. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that our gut health is really out of order because of the foods we're eating, the things that are coming into our environment, or into our internal environment from the external environment, like pesticides. And I don't want to go down that really sad story. You all know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But yeah, like there's a lot out there that is affecting our digestive and gut flora negatively. So what do we do to help it? Like I'm always I'd like to live on the side of hope rather than destruction and despair, because I spent my 20s in like, environmental activism, and it's a slippery slope because it's heavy. It's heavy what you see and the reality of the environmental crisis. And that's actually why I went into herbal medicine over wetland restoration, was because I was like, I need to get to the top of the problem. I don't want to fix I don't need to fix the wetlands. I need to fix people's minds. And not that, like, obviously I can't fix people's minds, but I can educate, I can share the brilliance and wisdom of the plants to help people protect them, understand them, use them respectfully, and understand that we are in a much more complex living ecosystem than most of us realize. So that was sort of, yeah. So for me, like living in a place of education has been better than living in a place of despair. All right. So those are my 5 actions that these 3 plants cover. So tonic, adaptogenic, nervine relaxant, immune modulating, and microbiome supporting. I also wanted to think about herbs that were safe, things that you can take in pregnancy, things that you can take if you're breastfeeding, that have very low or little drug herb interactions. I will talk about that for one herb. I also wanted to choose herbs that were traditionally used, that have a traditional history of use. Some of these are North American herbs, some of them are from China. And have an Asian, but they're naturalized here. But I wanted to choose herbs that have a traditional context. And I also thought it'd be real. I also wanted to make sure that there was at least one herb, but it ends up all 3 that are protective in some way. And as I'm talking about these 3 herbs, you'll see why each of them is protective. They have I would say, kind of like a shielding guardianship type energy in them, in very different ways, but they all serve as protectors of of the soul of this, or not the soul, but really more of the spirit, the more bodily spirit and energies. Okay. So, what are these herbs? Oh, you're so excited. I'm excited that you're excited. Let's talk about them. I did pick up some images, so I wanted to share with you because I know, for many people, it's like nice to hear me talking about the herbs, but it can be even nicer to actually see what are these herbs that, what do these herbs actually look like? So let's do full screen here. And this is, oops, let's go to the first one. So the first herb is nettle. And nettle, oh my goodness, I just love this plant so much. And if you know me, you're not surprised that this is the first plant that I think everyone in 2025 needs to get and take regularly. So nettle is, it's in the Urticaceae family, which is a pretty broad plant family. And what I love about this herb is that there are native urticas all over the globe. So there's Urtica dioica. This is the one on the far left with these pretty white flowers. These ones grow here in North America. So does Urtica urens. There's a little bit more of a purpley stem. These also grow here in the Midwest. And then we have urticas in Australia, like Urtica australis. This is a little bit more, look at it, looks a lot more rugged because it's growing in a more rugged environment. There's also urticas that grow native in Hawaii. One of my herb students lives in Hawaii, and she found at her local farmers market the native urtica to her island. So this plant has a lot of traditional use by different peoples as a nutritive tonic, kind of like a spinach. That's how the way that I would think about it. It's like a food. It's like a food, or it's like a food medicine. And this is an herb. One of the reasons I chose it as our top 5 is that it is probably the number 1 most nutritive herb that we have. It is so high in calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. It's really a wonderful source of iron. So if you tend to be a little bit anemic or you tend to have low energy, this is a great energy booster and mineralizer. If you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, or you have a family history of degenerative bone disease, if you have a family history of rheumatoid arthritis or any kind of arthritis, this herb is like the quintessential herb you should be taking. So it's nutritive, it's building, it's anti-inflammatory, it's bone building because of all of those minerals. It also is a wonderful antihistamine. And so I wanted to say this because this is really important. So if you have children who tend towards asthma and eczema, have them take nettles regularly. Like, even if you can only get them to take it once a week, just like say every Monday you have to drink nettles, right? Get your kids on nettles. What I like to do is I'll make an overnight infusion and I'll stick a little bit of licorice root in it and cinnamon. And then, sometimes I'll stick in like a tea bag that of their favorite like sleepy time tea, but you can mix the raw herb with other flavors, and kids often love it. Mix it with some honey, just get them to take this, because one thing that we found in studies is that children who tend to have higher IgE markers, that is kids who are more reactive to things like pollen and ragweed and pet dander and food allergies, are more likely to develop asthma, eczema, and maybe even rheumatoid arthritis and other inflammatory and maybe even autoimmune diseases. So let's start kids young. And even if you're listening to this and you have any of those, if you have asthma or you have eczema, this would be a great, you can start now. You can prevent it from getting worse by taking this herb to reduce overall systemic inflammation. And I was just reading a study on this yellow chlorophyll catabolite they found in nettles. They found it in the Urtica dioica, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be in all of your nettles. And they found in this study that it has very strong antioxidant activity, anti-inflammatory activity. The name of the yellow chlorophyll is phylloxanthobilin. And they found that in one tea bag, which is like nothing. Like I would never tell anyone to drink a tea bag of nettle. You need like a lot. I'll show you how much you need in a minute here. But in a 50 gram, in a tea bag steeped in a cup of tea, there was 50 units of this phylloxanthobilin. And, that was enough to be significantly reducing of oxidative activity and inflammation. So imagine if you took even more, you would get tons of this wonderful yellow chlorophyll. And you can see that yellow chlorophyll in solution when you brew this as a tea. It's just amazing. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about this. Oh, the other thing I want to say before I take down this image is just look at the spikes. You can see along the stem of the Urtica dioica these protective, stinging needles. And you can definitely see on the Urtica australis in this picture, these protective, nettles is it's a plant of protection. It protects its tender, nutrient rich leaves from grazers, right? And it also protects wetlands and areas that are, maybe a little muddy and a little more fragile. It likes to grow in places where there's a lot of protein matter from composted leaves or composted animal manure and things like that. And it's actually one of the highest sources of plant proteins on the planet is nettle leaves. So here's what I'm going to recommend is that you cook this and eat it as a food to get protein. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But also just think about when you're drinking this as a tea. Don't worry, you won't get stung by it because heat makes these formic acid needles, basically degrade. So you won't get stung. But this idea of it being an internal protector, it's an herb ruled by the planet Mars in traditional herbal astrology and medical astrology. So if we think about it as a Martian plant, it's hot and dry. And it's a plant of war in many ways. It's a plant, has these very pointed, jagged leaves, these spears. So it's a plant of like taking action. And I found over the years, many of my students have been able to come off of caffeine or stimulants just by drinking nettles every day because it gives you so much energy and it's like clean energy. There's no crash, there's no sugar cravings. Actually, a lot of people find that their sugar cravings reduce because they're no longer seeking, they're not hungry because their bodies are being satiated because of the minerals. And a lot of times we graze and snack mostly because we are actually looking, like our bodies are smart. We're like looking for minerals, we're looking for salts or different mineral salts, or we're looking for things. We're not actually hungry for sugar. We don't need the chips, we don't need the pastry, we just need minerals. So our body will keep eating until we get satiated. So when we take these minerals in from nettles, we're like, I don't need anything, I'm good, I'm set. So I think that's pretty amazing. Okay, so how do you use nettles? Now, I mean, you can buy tea bags. You're going to have to use about 10 of them. So what I'm going to recommend is that this is just a jar I have from my apothecary. This is a quart-sized jar, and you're going to fill it up to about here. So this is going to be about, 1 cup, about 1 cup of dried nettles, and then fill it all the way to the top with hot water. So you boil the water, pour it in, cap it, let it sit on your counter for about 8 to 12 hours. I like to do this at night. So then in the morning, I just pour it through a strainer and then I drink that whole quart throughout the day, or maybe share a cup of it with my daughters, right? But that's how you do it. And you can drink this. It's so safe. It's safe during pregnancy. It's safe during breastfeeding. It's safe if you're on medications. The only thing to be aware of is if you're on a diuretic, because this herb is a little bit diuretic, you might want to just be, maybe take it down to a half a cup or do a little bit less, maybe drink half the amount each day. But if you're on a diuretic, this is the only thing that I would be kind of careful with. But otherwise, think of it like a food. It's very, very safe. So I love that. And for 2025, this was my number one herb because in 2025, I think we would all benefit by being more nourished. And I think that a lot of our cravings and not even just food cravings, but like, I have to buy things. I need more things. I need more things. My house is full of things. I have too many things. That whole thing, we know that pattern. If we're actually really nourished and satiated, we don't do that as much. We're a little more contented. So in 2025, that's what I want to see in my body is more of that contented energy. And so I know the more that I'm nourished, then the more satiated I'm going to feel. So that's number one. Number two herb is mimosa. And oh gosh, this is such a beautiful plant. I know some of you are going to say, oh, mimosa, it's an invasive. Why would you ever talk about this herb? And it's because it's the happiness tree and it works. I have seen this herb work time after time after time. I just had, maybe you're listening, Mike, but I just had somebody reach out to me who lost their wife, and then shortly after lost their son. And what, I mean, I can't imagine. I can't even imagine. So, what do we do in times of extreme grief and loss, And you know, our nervines. So when I was talking about herbal actions, this plant is one that really helps with our mood and our spirit level emotional durability. And so for this particular gentleman, I said, I think skullcap, he had asked about skullcap, and I said, I think that's a great one. And I think mimosa is the way to go. Like, that's the herb that I think is going to have the strongest, most lasting benefit, because grief is not like, it's not like you have loss and then you have like, oh, let's set the clock 6 months later, I'll be back to normal. No, it doesn't work like that. Grief is the rest. I mean, when there is loss and deep loss, it's with you for your whole lifetime. And it gets, there's ebbs and flows. And I can't, speak to the level of loss that he experienced. But for my own smaller losses, I know for me, it comes and goes. It comes into consciousness and then it goes out, and there's good days and there's harder days. And for me, mimosa is the herb that is like, it's like that sweet friend who always knows how to say the right thing and always lifts you up without discounting your experience, right? Because that's one thing in grief that is so annoying, is when someone's like, it'll get better, or they try to say all these things that are supposed to help, but it actually makes you feel more alone and more sad. I feel like mimosa, it doesn't bulldoze you through the feelings you need to have, but it gently lifts you and anchors you. And so let's talk about this. I'm going to show you an image. All right, so this is a Albizia julibris, and on the left, you'll see this tree. This is what it looks like when it's growing, and it's native to Asia, China. It came over in the 1700s, and now, sadly, it's considered invasive throughout the South and in Hawaii. And that's not good, because then it's, basically like taking the place of native trees, which is not good. It's replacing a lot of native species. So I don't think that's great. And at the same time, it doesn't mean we can't use its medicine and, still harvest it. And when I lived in Maryland, this was my favorite plant to make a medicine from, because there's nothing like the fresh plant. So in the late spring, early summer, when you see this plant blooming, that's when you go out and you just harvest as many blossoms as you can. I usually will saw down a small branch and take it home, because here's the thing that it's really important to know about this tree is that you have, for in my opinion, you need to use the flower and then the bark together. And this is the reason why in traditional Chinese medicine, the flowers lift and lighten the spirit, whereas where the bark anchors the spirit, so that you don't get too dissociated. And I do like the flowers. They're very, very uplifting. So in a case of like maybe severe, pardon me, severe depression, or where a person's like so in their body, they can't escape the body and it's heaviness, you might want to use just the flowers. But I would say the best experiences I've had is with the mix and the blend of the bark and the flower together. And I'll include a link. Planetary Formulas makes one called Albizia Calm, and it's a blend of the bark and the flower. It's the only one I know of. If you know of another source that combines the two, let me know. I still have a big bottle that I made myself from, 5 years ago. So if you can get out there and harvest it and make medicines and share it with your community, that is your goal for the year, my herbal friends, is I want you to make a ton of this medicine and I want you to share it like confetti. I want you to share this medicine all year long. And let me tell you why. Because another name of this tree was the collective happiness tree. The collective happiness tree. And again, we don't want to be euphoric happy and dissociated from the realities of life and our responsibilities and our need to generate income and be kind and respectful to others. But we also, we need to be grounded and hopeful and communal thinking at this point in time. like we cannot afford any longer I think this is just me on my soapbox, to think that we can live separate lives and live separately. So to me, this herb is like such a wonderful plant for 2025. And maybe I can even maybe I'll see if I can fly out to the East Coast during harvest time and just do this myself. But just make a ton of medicine and share it, share it, share it, so that we can work on our collective healing. Can we be grounded in the realities that face us, the challenges and the hardships that are here, that are not going away, and at the same time have a light spirit about it? I I think we can. So this is an herb that will help support that deep work. And what you can do to use this herb is you can either make it as a tea. And again, I would recommend doing the fresh flowers and fresh bark if you can, just about like a maybe 1 teaspoon of the shaved bark and maybe 3 or 4 flowers per 2 cups of hot water, and just steep it for maybe, the bark, you might want to make it steep for like 20 minutes, and then drink that. So if you have an abundance of it, just do it fresh as long as you can. And, obviously the flowers are not in bloom. I think they're only in bloom maybe for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So you can also tincture this or take it as a tincture. And I do equal parts when I make it. I do, well, actually, it's equal parts by weight, but not by volume, because the flowers are super fluffy and the bark is obviously barky and heavy. So I try to just get as much bark, try to get it to yeah, to try to weigh out. So usually it's like maybe 10 times 10 part flower, 1 part bark by weight. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just try to get a blend of the two when you tincture it. The tincture tastes so sweet. Oh my gosh, everyone. If you haven't had it, it's like, oh my gosh, my husband and I take it. It's also been really good. It's really good for insomnia. So there was a study that was done in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology, found that it modulates GABA and 5-HT2C receptors, which affects serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine production. And they found that this was an effective treatment for insomnia. So we know that there's some biochemical reasons why this herb is effective for treating insomnia. And then Michael Tierra, a traditional Chinese herbalist, says that albizia, or mimosa, is thought to enhance all aspects of neurotransmitter secretion and regulation. So you can you can use this herb and just trust that it's going to have a positive effect on the regulation of all parts of your brain and gut neurotransmitter production. So it's a really nice one for that deeper like finding that internal regulation. Because here's the thing is, like, in order for, like, okay, I think of it like on a smaller level, right? Like my garden. In order for my whole garden to thrive, I have to have individual plants that are healthy, that are contributing to the soil. It's like the individuals make up the whole of the garden. And so, in terms of our collective health on this planet, it's like if we're each regulated and nourished, there's going to be a better chance of us as a planet making better choices and, surviving as a species. And also maybe just being more vital and more beautiful, right? Like, and not just aesthetically, but like on the level of humanity. Like I love it. And I don't know if this ever happens to you, but this happened to me when I was walking into the gym the other day. It's nothing fancy. I'm just walking into the gym and I make eye contact with a person and they smile with their eyes. And I almost started crying. I was like, that person's in their body and they're alive and awake. And like, I see that person, like they're fully there and I'm fully here. And it was just this moment. I was like, thank goodness that some people are really here. I know that might sound a little bit silly, but I do think that using plants like albizia, like nettle, eating good foods, like taking care of ourselves, like really does make a difference. And that eye contact changed the rest of my day. It changed me in a way that I can't describe. And I would love for more of us to be in that position of just not having to necessarily do anything other than go about your life, but go about it being fully there and looking at other people and smiling with your eyes. So, okay. Next herb, American ginseng. So, oh, did I tell you how to take this? I think yeah, I did tell you how to take it as a tea. And as a tincture, the dosage is you can start with like 10 drops, maybe a few times a day, but you can take up to maybe 2 or 3 droppers full. That's like a teaspoon up to 3 times a day. Okay. So this is an herb that can be can be dosed pretty highly. I will say for this one in terms of safety, if you are taking SSRIs, I would just take it maybe as a drop dose herb. So take it on a more energetic level. Even 1 drop of this, guys, I'm telling you, 1 drop, if you sit with this plant and take 1 drop, it will shift things. But then that way it doesn't affect the SSRIs. And if you're taking MAOI inhibitors and things like that, I would just do drop doses. Okay. Plant number 3, Panax quinquefolius. This is American ginseng. This is native to the United States, to the Appalachian region. It is a very sweet medicine. And Phyllis Light, who is a wonderful Appalachian herbalist, she does like sort of the Southern folk tradition. She's from Alabama. She said that her father only used American ginseng. He was an herbalist from the mountains, and he used that one plant for everything. But he used different parts of it. He'd boil one, he'd steep one, he'd put one in a wine, one in a honey, but he could use this plant to cure pretty much anything in their mountain town. And she says that her favorite, for her, she's like, this is an herb I think everyone could benefit from because it's so deeply nourishing and it's really, really adaptogenic. So remember when we go back to the beginning of the class, I've been rambling on now for a while, but at the beginning I said I really wanted to choose an herb that was going to be adaptogenic and immune modulating, and that's this plant. This plant is incredibly supportive for modulating our stress responses and keeping us from getting overly stressed, or on the flip side, under stress, which can be a problem if you're really kind of you lack motivation. It can help you get energy, and this is an herb that's used for fatigue, or as one of my herb teacher's daughter would say, fatty gooey. She saw his screen and saw the word FATIGUE and goes, Daddy, what's fatty gooey? And he laughed. And he was like, no, that's fatigue, but fatty gooey is kind of how fatigue feels. So anyway, I thank you, Richard Mandelbaum, for that. So this is really good if you're feeling fatty gooey, and it will increase your energy. It is slightly warming, but very sweet. And it's anti-inflammatory. It enhances cognition, so it helps with brain function. There was a clinical trial done in the Canadian Medical Association Journal in 2005 that they showed that the extract reduced incidence and severity of colds in adults. So it's got this immune boosting quality, which I think everyone would love to get sick less, right? It stimulates natural killer cells, cytokine production, but at the same time, it reduces excessive inflammation. So we have this really good macrophage and natural killer cell activation without having that hyperimmune response, which can cause damage to the tissues. So it's really smart in that way. It like turns on certain branches of our immune army without turning on others. So I think that's pretty neat. I also love that this herb is a prebiotic. I talked about the importance of our gut microbiome. So this herb is a microbiome supporter, and that's because of the ginsenosides, which is one of the compounds in this plant, which is also responsible for its adaptogenic properties. But genocides also act as a substrate for beneficial bacteria in the gut. And studies have shown that that American ginseng extract increased the amount of bifidobacterium and lactobacillus in mice guts. So mice guts are kind of like human guts, and those are the best bacteria. Like those are some like the strands of probiotics that we want to have the highest amounts of. And so American ginseng actually helps set us up for having better microbiome health. These ginsenosides help to enhance mitochondrial function and energy metabolism. This is part of why they help with fatigue and get our spirit, just give us a little bit more vitality and vital energy. So I think this would be a great herb for everyone to take in the year ahead to really support that deep immune vital force. I also wanted to show you the part that we use in herbal medicine, the part that I use, because I know different herbalists may use different parts, but the part that's traditionally used that I use is the root. And look at this root. Look at this root. Doesn't this look like a person? So a lot of the ginsengs were said to be herbs of longevity and immortality. And the roots of both Chinese ginseng, American ginseng, and Siberian ginseng all kind of have a humanesque image. And this root in particular, I thought this was so cool. I was looking up root images. Helen Metzman, who was one of my, she graduated from the same school I did, the Maryland University of Integrative Health in Maryland. This was a picture she took from Jim Duke's farm. And Jim Duke was an incredible teacher of mine who taught at MUIH, which was then Tai Sophia. And he created this incredible database. He worked for the USDA cataloging phytochemicals from the Amazonian rainforest. He was a chemist and ethnobotanist. And he has this beautiful garden that still exists today. And Helen was the main curator, and she graduated from MUIH, and she took over taking care of this ethno-medicinal and educational garden farm. And they call it the Herbal Pharmacy, Farmacy. So if you live in Maryland, check out Jim Duke's Herbal Pharmacy. You can have a tour. But this was a picture that this was a root grown in Jim Duke's garden, and the photo that Helen took. And I was just like, whoa, so cool. So amazing small world. And that picture is just speaks 1,000 words. So we can think about this as being an herb of longevity, helping us with mental regulation, cognitive health, and also immune support. How do you take this herb? I recommend it as a tincture. So you can take it maybe, I would say, like 1 to 2 droppers full twice a day. You do need to take a little bit more, because if you really want it to work, you need to get some of those ginsenicides in your system. This one, I would say you want to make sure that it's ethically sourced. So I'll include a few links, because sometimes this herb is poached still. It's illegally gathered from protected areas because it isn't sort of on the edge of being endangered. So I would really make sure when you're looking at the labels that you find ethically wild-crafted source, like Mountain Rose Herbs, David Winston's Herb Company, Herbalists and Alchemists. There's a number of people that are growing it in regulated. They're basically growing it in their own forests and managing the populations very responsibly. So seek out, really well-grown, well-harvested, and well-managed American ginseng. And you can also, if you want to, if you buy the roots, you can decoct it, which means you heat it like you cook it basically for maybe 20 minutes, covered, maybe like a teaspoon of it and maybe 3 cups of water for like 20 to 30 minutes, and let it sit. And then you can just drink like half of that every day. So those are my 3 herbs for you. I hope that was interesting, and I hope you liked looking at the pictures. I was, it's just nice to see the plants and to know what they look like. And one thing I didn't say about the American ginseng in talking about protection is that it has these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so it was called the helping hand. That's one of the things Matthew Wood called it. So it's this like great helper, like I'm here to help you. And then it offers this flower and berry. It's so pretty. So it's a really nice, beautiful, sweet, very nourishing plant as well. So there you have it, friends. 3 herbs that I think will be great allies in 2025. You can maybe choose one of them to start with, or maybe you buy all 3 and just have them on your, where you take your supplements, or for me in my bathroom on my toothbrush, so I remember to take them. But maybe these are 3 herbs that you just really put to the forefront and say, let me just work with these plants and really get to know these plants over the course of the year and really get an embodied experience of how they help you. And that will help you then be able to share them with other people, which is the whole goal of this plant building network, is sharing the herbs, having more people take them and really feel and experience their benefits. So thank you always for watching. Let me know your comments, your questions, anything that you'd like for me to cover in the year ahead in my content creation. And I will see you all in the next video.